Let's start with our presentation for today. So the title is Introduction to Bitcoin Investigation. And I want to clarify that the examples, analysis, views, and opinions are all my personal opinions, so are not related to my current employer or related to EC Council. So who I am? I come from Brazil, I'm Brazilian, and I have been working in law enforcement for 16 years. And now I start a new journey in my life. I started working in private sector, so I'm new in this field. But I have a lot of experience with cybercrime investigation. I have been working with cybercrime investigation, digital crime, online investigation for more than 15 years. And today we will talk about Bitcoin investigation only using free open source tools. So of course we can have better results if we have some paid tools, but we are not using this today. And these are all these tools that I will mention today are all my personal choices regarding to free tools. Okay, so we need to start contextualizing and what is Bitcoin. So according to the Financial Action Task Force, Bitcoin is one asset, it's not money. So according to many regulations, we cannot say that Bitcoin is money. Bitcoin is one asset that can have a value in money, can be exchangeable by money, fiat money. So Bitcoin only have value because individuals want it to have value, are willing to pay for them. Bitcoin have no other backup like gold, for example. It's just because people believe that it has value. Second, Bitcoin, you can download the whole blockchain for free from one website to send, receive, and conduct Bitcoin transactions. Also, anyone can obtain Bitcoin addresses at a Bitcoin exchanger or wallet service. All the transactions are publicly available in a shared transaction register that we call ledger. So we can check all the transactions. So the difference, for example, from fiat money here is because we don't have a central authority that is issuing the Bitcoin. It's decentralized. And also, for example, in one bank account, the bank, for example, can see all the transactions and can see the owner of that transactions. But the public cannot see the transactions. To see that transaction, someone needs to have a court order or see the own transactions. In Bitcoin is the opposite. We can see all the transactions publicly, but we cannot see who is the owner of that transaction in the real world. The Bitcoin address is a string of letters and numbers, and this is case sensitive. The first two versions are case sensitive, and are not directly linked to one individual in the real world. And I just to clarify, I brought here the three models of Bitcoin address that can start with one that we usually say that's the less secure, can start with 3 that's most secure because it's generated by using a combination of multiple private keys, and the BC1 starts with BC1, that's the more modern, and this BC1 model is not related to case sensitive, so you don't need just to copy and paste like the other address, that you need to copy and paste the address to not make any mistakes. And how does Bitcoin work? So one of the main characteristics is that Bitcoin is not centralized currency. It's decentralized. So it works because we have a lot of people maintaining the networks. For example, to create a Bitcoin, miners are all trying to solve mathematical functions and to validate transactions and add a block to the blockchain. So the first characteristic is because the Bitcoin is decentralized. It works based in peer-to-peer network. We have a lot of nodes validating the transactions to add the block to the blockchain. Bitcoin exchange usually offer the wallet service and also offer the exchange for virtual currency, cryptocurrency to the fiat money, to US dollars, euro, for example. Individuals and business can create wallets, and one wallet can have many Bitcoin addresses to make transactions. And Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. It's not a virtual currency, because a virtual currency can be centralized, for example, and also is not linked to cryptographic security. And the Bitcoin, no, is decentralized and have the cryptographic security technology. This ensures that all the balance and transactions are safe. So how one Bitcoin transaction happen? For example, if someone wants to buy something, the person can just scan or copy the other person Bitcoin address, type in the amount and the fee, because each transaction usually have with one fee, the processing fee, and send, and click send. In this meantime, a hash will be calculated and start the mining process. So miners will start to try to validate the transaction. And as soon as the transaction is validated, the block will be added to the blockchain. So the person who is receiving the cryptocurrency will receive the assets, and will be able to see also the block in the blockchain. I found this map very interesting because we can have one idea how spread are the nodes used to mine Bitcoin in the world. And very interesting, for example, that we can see that Singapore is one of the places that have more nodes working on Bitcoin mining in the world. I brought here some interesting numbers. For example, as of today, the market price of Bitcoin is around 9,000 US dollars. We have, for example, per day, more than 300,000 transactions. More than 86% of all the Bitcoins already were issued, but we still have more than 2 million Bitcoins to be mined. Very interesting to mention that every 10 minutes, a block of Bitcoins is paid to miners who first solve the complex transactions. A block can have a lot of transactions, but the average today is more than 2,000 transactions. Initially, each block was rewarded for miners more than around 50 Bitcoins, but this number have been reduced every 4 years, and today, after a block is mined, what means every 10 minutes, around every 10 minutes, because can be less according to the computer power of the mining process, every 10 minutes, 12 Bitcoins, 12 and a half Bitcoins are generated. And today I brought to exemplify a case that's very common today related to cyber extortion. This is not case related to any of my work in law enforcement or in my current employer. Was a friend. So the person called me and said, "Look, Beatrice, I received this email and I'm very afraid. I did nothing wrong, but they have my password." So the person was very scared and asked me some advice in my personal, according to my personal experience. So I started to help this person. So for example, the person received one email in January last year, more than just 1 year ago. And in the email, the threat actor says, "I have your password." And actually that was the password of the person. So this is one of the main characteristics. Threat actors are targeting, are customizing, to be more clear, emails to make people believe that it can be true. So make people feel nervous and do what the threat actors want. So they are improving their social engineering skills. So this is the case of cyber extortion. And the main characteristics of cyber extortions are, first, emotional destabilization through social engineering. So they have already the email address of the person, the victim, they have also the password. And they use a language that the victim usually cannot understand. They use technical language, saying that they are monitoring after a malware attack, and the average use cannot understand, so get scared and feels pressure to pay to send the bitcoins. Another characteristic is the poor written language, potentially probably because the threat actor may use a translator to write the email. So this a very a big red flag. Also, threat actors are collecting data from victims from social networks, social media, to give credibility to their intentions. Also need to be careful. And usually, in this case, they are requesting a payment in Bitcoin. So they give the Bitcoin address. And the threat actors, this is very interesting. They say, this is case sensitive. So you copy and paste the Bitcoin address when you go to pay. So you know now, for example, that if the Bitcoin address starts with BC1, this is not case sensitive anymore. But a lot of network and exchange did not accept this model of Bitcoin address yet. So what you should do first? We start analyzing the email sender and the victim data, how the threat actor knows the victim password, for example. In this case, I didn't have the complete header of the victim email that the victim received. The person didn't send to me. So I analyze only the email sender. We're using a Whois tool. You can have a lot of Whois tool for free, or if you need one more deep analysis, you maybe have to pay one tool. Have a lot in the market. So using one Whois tool, I had these results. So mail server reports no such user. Invalid email. This domain could not be found, but more interesting is here. This domain may have been created using a domain generation algorithm, what means that this threat actor is a little bit more advanced than the basic threat actor, and also that the person, he or she, the threat actor, is using one generator, domain generator for each of their targets. And about the victim email and password. Usually the victim email password have been already breached and are available online for buying in online illicit markets. For example, in the case of my friend, my colleague, when she called me and I just put her email here in this website, have I been pinned? And I found that her email has been breached. So only in this first step, the second step to be clear, I could advise her to not pay any assets for the criminals, because we know already how he or she probably got her password. Just coming back, I strongly recommend you that are hearing me now to usually try to search your email address here. And if your email address in any hypothesis have been compromised, I recommend you to change all your passwords, because sometimes was compromised in, for example, in this data breach, but your password have one pattern. And if the threat actors have access to the pattern of your password, maybe they can use it in another tool that we call brute force tool, and it will be easier for them to have access to other accounts that you have used that same email address, even if when the password is not the same. So I strongly recommend to avoid password reuse. And if one of your email addresses have been breached in some point of time, please change all the password and change the pattern of your passwords. So one of the main techniques to conduct online investigations is following the money. So in this case, we will follow the money through the Bitcoin address. We will follow the flow of transaction, but just remember that we will use basic tools because we are only using free tools in this lecture. So this is my personal opinion. I really like Matigo community version. This is not one advertisement. This is a free tool. And what I like is because we can have a graphic idea about the flow of the transactions. For example, here I put the Bitcoin address from the threat actor, and I expanded to see from to where the assets were sent to. So I can see here that the person, the threat actor, sent the assets to a lot of other addresses. And this is really common, first to avoid detection, to be more difficult to trace, but also because usually people are using Bitcoin address once. So this not mean that means that he is or she is sending to another actors. This can mean that he or she is sending to their own address, just to spread and turn more difficult the traceability. Just coming back here, I'm using in this graph Maltigo community version and also the transform free also from blockchain.info. So for example, what I love to do is open all the transactions. We say outbound transactions. So the transaction from this guy to other Bitcoin address to spread the assets. And something very interesting is because when you expand the graph, you start to see common address. So for example, here, through this direct transaction, but through this indirect transaction, Bitcoin was sent to this address. So this is one address that you need to focus on in your investigation. The same here and the same here. So it's not a difficult investigation, but you need to put a lot of effort to have a good result in the end. So other tip that I give is you need to be very organized in your collection here, your intelligence collection here, because if you just expand all the transactions, in the end you can be lost. So I recommend you to spend first the first line and then the second line in order to identify and to have one idea, a clear idea how the flow of the assets happen. So for example, here you know that you need to focus on this first address in the end, also in the common address that received the assets. One tool that I really like and also is free is the Bitcoin Who's Who. So for example, in this case, I picked the first address, the threat actor address, and I did the search. And it's very interesting because here you can have all the information regarding to that address that's publicly available. For example, you can see here the Bitcoin address, but also you can see the wallet name. And remember, I just mentioned that one wallet can have a lot of other Bitcoin address. So you can expand also your investigation lines. Very interesting is to find if the Bitcoin address is still holding any balance, because if it still hold any balance, you can expect that the threat actor will move this balance. So I recommend you, I suggest you to go, and here in the tool you have a option to watch this address. So you start to monitor this address, and when the threat actor move the funds, you will be notified. You can see here the number of transactions that this address made. The first transaction, and this is very good for investigation because you can see, for example, if this address was created only to do this case or was older for any reason. So you can also have a timeline here. You can see here the address that interacted most with this address. So you also need to focus on in this address. Here they say website appearance, so it's about open source reports mentioning this address, so you can go to these two websites, for example, to have more information. Very interesting information also come from IP addresses. So these IP addresses are not always related to threat actors, maybe only related, for example, to miners or to exchangers. But yes, these address can be leads for you. So you must check, for example, using passive DNS tools to check if you have any website hosted in this IP address, or if maybe this IP address is from one internet connection. So this is something very interesting to check. You can see here the total received, output transactions, so how many transactions, and you can see here, for example, the last transaction. What means also that sorry, you can insert also in your timeline to understand how the crime dynamics have happened. In the same tool, you can see what the community is saying about that address. And for example, in this case, the same case, we have a lot of people complaining and explaining that this address is related to sextortion with password email. So with this information, you are already able to advise anyone to say, stop, don't go, don't pay, this is a scam. So only using free open source tools, you could advise a person to not fall victim of a scam. So as we saw before, we have the wallet name that we collect from this address, from this tool here, sorry. So here we have the wallet name, and our next step is to check the wallet. So checking the wallet in this tool, this free tool also called walletexplorer.com, you can see that this wallet, sorry, have a lot of other Bitcoin address. In this case, have 16 Bitcoin address related. So you can affirm that this wallet, this threat actor wallet, that can be a threat actor group or threat actor person, just a person, but holds 16 other Bitcoin address that you need to analyze also. In the same tool, walletexplorer.com, that's a free tool, very useful free tool. You can understand, you can see the transactions of the wallet, so all the address related to that wallet. So our task now is try to identify, is try to link the real world person, the virtual person, to the real world person. And to do this, we need to identify the transaction in Bitcoin exchange or any e-commerce website. So we can also request data from these CEFC providers. So in this case, analyzing the wallet transactions, for example, I could find some Bitcoin exchange, for example, Bitstamp here and Huobi. The main difference from paid tools to open and free tools is because in free tools, usually we don't have this that we call tagging and clustering. What are tagging and clustering? Tagging is saying that that address belongs, for example, to this Bitcoin exchange. What turn our life a lot of easier investigation, but okay, let's do as with what we have. And tagging and clustering is as putting together a lot of addresses that maybe belong to the same entity or same threat actor group or same, for example, exchange. So in open source free tools, usually we don't have this. So in the market, we have a lot of good tools that have clustering tagging. And also in the second tool that we checked, that is the Bitcoin Who's Who, you can help the community tagging addresses that you already know that are from scams or from elsewhere. So for example, in this case, coming back here, we identify some transactions in known exchanges. Oops. So what are our findings only using open source and free tools? First, the Bitcoin address was reported fraudulent 16 times. So just with this, you can advise a person to not do any transaction with that address. Our suspect address had 32 transactions and only worked from January to May last year. That actor was able to receive more than 5 Bitcoins, around 46,000 US dollars. So this is another tip. So when you are trying, or when are you produce one report related to Bitcoin, and you are talking about historical data, to estimate the value in fiat money, for example, US dollars, you cannot use the value of the dollar as of today, the data you are producing the report. You need to go to one historical Bitcoin price page website, have a lot of this online to find. And so you do the estimation, use the price of the Bitcoin at the time of the thread, not the price of the Bitcoin at the time of the report. The current balance in this related to this Bitcoin address is zero, but if it's not zero, we could watch the transactions in Bitcoin Who's Who, for example. I suggest deeper analysis on the IP address that we saw in Bitcoin Who's Who. I remember you that some of the IP address probably are related to nodes and exchange, but also can be related to your threat actors. So in one investigation, we need to have a lot of lines of investigations. We identify the wallet used and analyzing the wallet in Wallet Explorer. We identified another 16 Bitcoin address linked to that wallet. So you need to do the same that we did, for example, in the first Bitcoin address to the other 15 address to open and analyze if you can find any leads. And we identified also using the Wallet Explorer cryptocurrency exchanges potentially used by threat actor that we need to reach now to gather more information. So to link a virtual entity to a real-world person, we need to request information from service providers, for example, to the two cryptocurrency exchange that we identified. The type of information that we can request are, for example, the logs, IP address, time zone, date, times of login and log off, transactions. We can also request the name, but usually if it's a more sophisticated attack, the name and address will be false, will be fake. The email address is very important information to be requested because we can have a lot of email investigation techniques later. Device information, a lot of service provider collect data about the device information, so it's very important also. Some exchange, for example, can collect geolocation information, so maybe also we can request this. And very important is payment information. So for example, if it is a exchange or e-commerce website, how, from where, to where, sorry, that cryptocurrency will be sent to turn as fiat money, exchange to be fiat money. So payment information is really important also. However, it's important to highlight that usually those to request this information, the person will need to have a court order or police subpoena. So this last phase is not easy for person who is not working in law enforcement or are not related to legal professions. And just to summarize, what are our threat indicators? So we first need to analyze the victim email to identify from where probably the threat actor gathered the password and that email account. We need to analyze the threat actor email. The first step usually is analyze the email that the victim received and analyze the complete header, but not always this is available for you. So you need to analyze, you go to analyze the threat actor email address, the domain, check if it's the valid email account, and so on. We have also the Bitcoin address and the wallets, the Bitcoin address related to that wallet, and the Bitcoin address from where the threat actor received assets and to where the threat actor sent assets, and analyze all the wallet transactions. We have IP address, public available in that Bitcoin who is who, but sometimes not related to our threat actors. But also we can have IP address if you are able to gather subscriber information from service providers, such exchanges. So for example, we can have more threat related IP address threat actor related IP address if we are able to gather this information. And to request this subscriber information, usually we need court order or subpoena. So I need to highlight that it's just basic and introduction course, maybe a lecture, maybe we can have more if you like it. And I'm now open to questions.